Hello, everyone. Brent here with BYOT on CJ and Drill. And yes, I know I'm going live by myself. I do apologize for the confusion, but inevitably Leah is having technical difficulties at the moment, but she will be with us. She told me to go live. So thank you all for joining our happy hour special with apparently hosted by Brent with BYT. Please, again, shout out. Let's know where you guys are all from. I'd love to see who's joining us this evening, as well as where you're from. On today's episode, we have Jess Crow from Crow Creek Design, and she has some incredible, beautiful pieces of more art than anything else, in my opinion. She specializes in woodworking as well as epoxy, and some of the things that she creates are absolutely incredible. So we're really happy and excited to have her on the show today, as well as the fact that we have Total Boat having our happy hour giveaway this evening. So inevitably, remember, if you do want to sign up and be eligible to win the happy hour special, please leave some type of comment in the live feed, because we will be giving out a nice care package from Total Boat. Now, they are going to be giving away 1 gallon of the Maker Epoxy, which also Jess Crow actually created with them. They will also be doing a halcyon cup mix, as well as a free hat, because who doesn't love a free hat? So all of you will be eligible to win that amazing little care package if you leave a note in the description link below over here on the side. So just make sure you leave some type of comment, anything, anywhere. Let's go ahead and just take a few comments on the go right now, as well as where everyone is from. So we have, oh, they're coming in quick now. We have Wisconsin, of course, good old Wisconsin. Ooh, look at that. We got someone from Australia joining us, Milwaukee, Florida, Bronx, New York. Hope you guys are doing well, COVID style. Oregon. My wife's from Oregon. I always have a little love for Oregon. Ooh, Ireland. Sean, thank you for joining us. We have New England. We have Florida. So many places. Let's see. Let's take a few more. So we got, ooh, Colorado. Yes. Ooh, greeting from Brazil. I love her audience, and I do apologize, especially if you're joining us right now. This is a bit of technical difficulty on Leah's end. She will be joining us. She's trying to fix it on her end as we speak, but she did tell me to go ahead and go live so you guys all weren't waiting on your questions and answers. So she will be joining us shortly. Thank you for the patience. And with any further ado, again, please let us know where you're from on the description box below over here, because you will be automatically entered into the happy hour special giveaway. But without any further ado, let's go ahead and bring on Jess Crow.
Hi.
Hey, Jess. How's it going?
It's going good. It stands to reason we're having a little bit of technical difficulties with the lovely host, but we'll get through this.
We will all get through this one way or the other. So again, thank you so much for joining us. The technical difficulties are a thing, of course, in some cases, but I do greatly appreciate your patience with us, you as well as our audience here. So thank you so much. Again, I gave the audience a bit of an introduction to you, but if you would like, please give us a little bit of introduction to yourself as far as who you are, how'd you get into this very unique realm of epoxy?
Okay. So my name is Jess, and I live right outside of Anchorage, Alaska. I've lived here most of my life. I have been doing woodworking, and I've been doing woodworking as a job now for going on 4 years. And before that, I was just more of a tinkerer, crafter, beater, jack of all trades, did a lot. When furniture flipping became popular, started making dressers and coffee tables, and really didn't see a lot that had art on it. It was all shabby chic and shiplap, and very Joanna Gaines. Very Joanna.
Yes. I know it. I know. I've used the paint.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, wonderful, wonderful. So from there, it just turned into making tables, and the projects kept getting bigger and bigger. And about 2.5 years ago, was 3 years ago, excuse me, is when I discovered epoxy. And I was done from there. The things that you can make with it. One of my first projects was a 16-foot countertop. I'm like, oh, go big or go home. So
why not? Why not, right?
I made a gigantic wave on it. And I remember walking into a conference for the first time, and people were just like, you're the one making that wave countertop, right? And I'm like, I was terrified because I was like, why are you talking to me? Who are you people? They had seen it online, and the rest is kind of history from there.
Oh, I love it. I love it. Let's continue the conversation, but real quickly to the audience, please go ahead and list your questions for us on the side here. It can either be epoxy related, but just make sure you use a hashtag at the very beginning so I can easily find the questions and pick out the ones that we can actually answer. So they can be epoxy related, they can be home improvement related, because you still have me, maybe not my better side, Leah, to answer all of your home improvement questions, but I will do my very best and really channel my inner Leah C. Jane Drill. So again, thank you so much for your patience and time and energy with this. But Jess, yeah, I mean, if the audience hasn't seen your stuff, it is truly a beautiful, it's incredible what you're able to create. The wave formation especially is something that always catches my eye automatically, and I'm definitely going to try my hand at wave making in the near future. We'll see when, but my wife and I are expecting a baby girl, and my wife wants to have a underwater theme. So I said, okay, well, you know what I have to do? I have to create these epoxy waves in some way.
No, and that's the thing is people kind of, woodworkers, I think, predominantly forget this a little bit, that you can take any project, a side table, an end table, and you can instantly turn it into wall art. So if you're wanting to make a project for a baby or a niece or a nephew, make that beautiful wood table and throw a frame on it, and now you have art.
Exactly. It's so versatile. It's pretty incredible what you're really able to create with such a product that I felt like wasn't around 5 years ago. Of course it was, but I personally don't feel like I saw that anywhere in the YouTube genre. Mm-hmm. But it really has has created a unique stranglehold on the creator space. And I know from talking with you previously, you did make your own epoxy, the makerpoxy, correct?
Yeah. So, like I said, I'm in the world of epoxy. I'm relatively new. I just managed to, I have such an art background, and I had my woodworking background, and I married the two, which kind of made a big splash on the scene. So I have used almost every epoxy that's on the market, and there was things that I didn't like about a lot of them. So I got with Total Boat. I happened to meet them at a conference. I got with Total Boat, and he was like, I love this, and this sucks. So what can we do to make that? And we started, hey, I see somebody coming on.
Maybe.
So we're making the spinning wheel of death. And so we just created this kind of hybrid formula. If anybody's familiar with epoxy, you have tabletops, which literally are what they're for, tabletops, bars, counters. Mm-hmm. Yep. Then you have what's called artist epoxies, and my unit heater is kicking on now, which is great. Artist epoxies they have a longer working time, and they're very soft. So they're not great for countertops. They're not great for tabletops, but they accept color, and they're crystal clear. So it's as if we had an art resin and a tabletop resin, and they had a baby, and now we have maker epoxy. So it's super hard. You can use it on furniture. You can use it to turn pen blanks. You can do all these things with it. And it's just a fantastic medium. It's still chilly here in Alaska, so the unit heater goes off.
Of course. No worries.
Adds to the ambience of the night.
Of course. With I know Leah would love to say something right now, but she does have. Hey, oh, Leah, do we have you on? Yes, we can. Welcome.
I gotta tell you, folks, I'm really sorry.
Welcome to CJ Drill Happy Hour.
I don't know how long I'm going to be on because they're having an outage in the area, so the engineers are working on it. So it's
you're right.
So we're just going to try to do our best. Thanks for holding down the. Appreciate it, buddy.
No problem.
And Jeff, hello, and so glad you could join us.
Thank you for having me.
Why don't you just continue to take the lead here, folks? Let me just say to you, I'm going to try to stay with you for as long as I can. Of course, that's up to the internet gods, disconnected again or not. But I'm glad to be here right now. Let me ask, did you announce our happy hour?
Oh, we already got that on lockdown. Thank you, Total Boat.
What was that, buddy?
Yes, we already did announce that. We already announced how to win. We're going to do a nice little giveaway. I introduced Jess, and I just asked the audience to list their questions, whether it's the epoxy questions or home improvements. So I am seeing questions come up on the screen right now. Can you see those?
I'll tell you what, why don't I allow you to continue to take the lead because I'm still having some issues here. I'll look in the questions. I'll look in the comments for questions, folks. Just remember hashtag and I'm sure Brent has told you hashtag, so we can distinguish between questions in the room and just talk. Can everybody, Brent, can you just tell me if you can hear me okay?
I can, but you're breaking up a little bit. So you are breaking up slightly when you're talking. Oh, Leah? Jess, you're still with me, right?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, well, I think now is the perfect time to start answering a few questions because I see some good questions and a good epoxy questions. So let's, first things first. How do you get spills of epoxy resin off your skin? Do you have any tricks of the trade?
I do. The easiest and quickest way. The easiest and quickest way is using 99% alcohol. You can use denatured alcohol, but be very careful if you're sensitive on your skin. That could hurt you. I can use denatured alcohol if I'm just kind of using it and scrubbing it. Best thing is always, no matter what you see on YouTube or your neighbor's best friend, use gloves when you're working with epoxy, and try to avoid getting it on your skin best you can.
Yeah, I fully agree, especially with me personally. In all honesty, I don't even know if you know that I've actually started working with epoxy recently, and I just absolutely love it. It's one of those things that it's so versatile, and yeah, the tricks of the trade of trying to get it off your skin, I will definitely be using those quite regularly now.
Yeah, if you actually put 99% alcohol in a spray spritz bottle, it's really easy to get it off because you can put it on there, give it a second, and it comes off pretty well.
Love that tip. Thank you so much. We have Craig from the UK. Can I ask, how eco-friendly is epoxy? Do you happen to know that?
Fantastic question. There are so many epoxy brands, and some of them have low or no VOC, volatile organic compound. Yep. You're going to want to look for ones that have that. Some are not very clear that they do not have that, and that's a good indicator that it might not be on the little bit more environmental friendly side.
Yep. No, that's a very good point. There is an array of differences, I'm sure. In all honesty, just with that respect and with that question, what do you think of Total Boat on their end?
Total Boat, that's the great thing with them is some of their resins are a little less on the eco-friendly side, but they're working towards having a complete line of eco-friendly. So the tabletop, the maker epoxy, and the deep pour are all either low to no VOC.
Okay. No, that's great to hear. Thanks for the helpful tip. I'm glad I asked.
Yes, I'm glad you asked too.
So I don't know if this is any relation, Crow, But question, how much epoxy do you use on a daily basis?
If I'm working on a large project, I will go through, I've done pours, 10 gallon pours. So on the daily,
that's significant.
And when you're working in a 20-minute time frame, it's like, oh crud, I got to get this done. So yeah, it's a lot, a gallon. If I had to average it out, probably.
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, what with that? Obviously, are you using your the thick set epoxy?
Well, it really depends, and that's the thing that as people start to learn about epoxy, I mean, okay, I have an example. I have two.
Yes, please.
So this is a thick set. So you can see I've got it in this box, and this will be a pen blank. And I don't know how well you can see kind of the shimmer and the shine in that.
Yeah.
So again, this is as much epoxy as this box holds. Whereas like this is, even though it's going to be a larger surface area, this is less epoxy than that for this entire space.
Interesting, yes, because that obviously would make sense because you're using a larger span, larger area, so the same epoxy going to be using in different directions. Yeah,
so it's epoxy, and that's actually, I mean, that's a great segue into probably the biggest thing that I could ever tell your viewers is epoxy is not a one size fits all. There's, as I mentioned, there's a tabletop, there's a thick set, there's the makerpoxy, there's 2-to-1s. So you really have to make sure that you're looking at the directions. If you want to redo your countertops, you want to use either the makerpoxy or a tabletop. Do not want to use the thick set or the deep pour. You will end up with a puddle all over the place.
Yep. That would be bad. Well, this kind of also goes side by side because Dee asks, how easy is it to use epoxy?
It actually, as scary as it seems, it is actually very easy if you read the instructions. It's hard for me, I get it. Like when I first got into epoxy, I knew everything within 30 seconds. And then I wasted about $5,000. So epoxy is generally very easy to use. I would encourage people to start with small projects like this. I mean, this is just a circle that I routed out and I put a little ocean inside of it. So start small and you will actually get a very great feel for it. And there's lots and lots of very good tutorials. I have 5 on my website that are for free. There's a lot on YouTube. So just make sure that you're kind of staying within your scope. I would not encourage people to do what I did and get started right away with a 16-foot countertop. Bad idea.
Yep. No, I agree. It's one of those things that I've used personally, and the actual like mixing portion of it is actually, quite fairly simple. It's either going to be a 1-to-1 or a 2-to-1, that sort of thing. And it's very simple to use. However, you just got to be mindful of what you're pouring it into. Like that's always been my issue with epoxy. If I've had issues, is some type of leak. And when a leak happens, it can go very wrong very quickly. So making sure you have a proper supported device, whatever you're actually pouring into, make sure you do as best a job as possible to ensure that there's no leaks. That's my only advice.
Yes, it is. And that comes in with using silicone, using Tyvek tape, using hot glue dams. There's all of these things that you can do to ensure that you're not spilling and wasting epoxy.
Yep, exactly. So we have next question. Tom asks, what did you spray on the epoxy on the turn bowl?
I just so happen to have that bowl right here. So I turned
Perfect timing.
It is, and I'm going to so for people who aren't familiar with it, that's going to seem like such a really odd question. So let me grab this right here for you. So this is the same thing as the bowl, Tom. So as you can see, I'm going to pull it in close. You can see all these cells and all these. There we go. How's that?
Perfect.
Okay, so to get these cells and all this really pretty lacing, this is also your hand cleaner. This is 99% alcohol in a spritz bottle. So
really interesting.
Yes. So if you go to my Instagram, I actually have quite a few videos on it, and I'll get some up on my YouTube. But I did the dark blue epoxy, then I did the light blue, then I did my white, and then I feathered it down with a heat gun, with my Wagner heat gun, and then I spritzed it with the 99% alcohol, and it creates this lacing effect. But you have to be careful. One spritz. Do not sit there and over.
Yeah, not a lot, right?
one and done.
No, I love hearing that. It's good to know. Let's see, our next question we have, Dee, do you have to use a P100 mask? Does epoxy give off a lot of fumes like fiberglass work?
So different epoxies have different makeup. So as a whole, that question is very ambiguous, and I can't speak to that particular thing, but I do wear a mask when I'm wearing, or when I'm doing a lot of epoxy work. I do recommend that you, if you are not in a very large ventilated area, or if you have any sort of sensitivities to chemicals, that you do wear a rated mask. Again, epoxies that have low to no VOC, you're more likely to have an easier time with. And when I do teach, I always have the option for people to have a mask. I provide them, but I have not had, in the thousands of people that I've taught across the nation, I've not had anybody have a sensitivity, but it doesn't mean you could not be that one. So I encourage people to wear masks. I do when I'm doing large pours for the most part, but fiberglass epoxies, you absolutely have to. If you're working with fiberglass, you really need to be safe.
Yeah, for sure. Completely agree with that. The next question is a good question, especially for newbies. Is there one in particular epoxy you would suggest for newbies?
So again, this is a huge part of the reason that I partnered up with Total Boat. I would have to say the makerpoxy, and it's truly because it is a marriage between epoxies that I felt difficult to work with when I first started. For instance, tabletop, you have 20 minutes from the time that you stir those to part A and part B in your cup. You have 20 minutes until it starts to firm up and you can't work. Whereas art epoxies, you can have like an hour and 20 minutes, and sometimes you lose your design and it gets frustrating. So maker epoxy, you can shorten the time from 20 minutes, or you can extend it to 90 minutes. It all is variable on the heat in your shop, and if you make a hot box over it. So the maker epoxy is very, very forgiving.
No, I love hearing that, and not to, I won't consider that a shameless plug, because I do completely believe you, because your history behind your epoxy knowledge, as well as Total Boat providing such a superior product, in my opinion, because I've used multiple in the past as well, and I love the marriage of the two together. So I will personally have to use that in the very near future.
Yeah, it's very friendly. And like I said, I'm not saying anything bad about other epoxies, because there are lots of great epoxies out there. This just happens to be my personal preference.
Perfect. Leah, welcome back. Can you hear us? Oh, no. Oh, no. Oh, Leah, we miss you so much. She's trying so hard to be here. Everyone, if you have not heard yet and you're just joining us and you're wondering why it's just apparently BYOT happy hour instead of Leah CJ Drill happy hour, it's because we're having random technical difficulties at this very moment, and Leah is trying her hardest to be with us, as you can see right now. Leah, are you there?
Yes, I am. What can I tell you?
I just informed the audience that we know you're trying so hard to be with us right now.
That's technology for you.
Yep, that's technology.
Well, I'm going to let you continue to run the show, Brent, because I don't know how long we're going to be on. So carry on, Brent. Carry on.
Well, we've been getting some great questions from your audience. So again, thank you all for joining us. And again, hashtag, if you have a question, we are taking epoxy questions as well as home improvement questions. So we have been getting some great epoxy questions though, Leah. So it's really nice to see that. And a lot that are directly, that are perfectly answered by Jess. So we much appreciate that. Let's see another question. Okay. Oh, we got some, okay, we have a few more. Oh, here we go. Going back into the maker question. This is a great maker or epoxy question is, where do you find this product?
So you can find it on my website, which is crowcreekdesigns.com, or you can find it on Amazon and it is makerpoxy, just exactly as you have it spelt on the screen. So because I think I've seen a couple of people ask if that's what I was saying. So yes, it's makerpoxy on Amazon, my website, totalboat.com are all places you can find it.
Perfect. No, I love hearing that. Thank you for whoever asked that question, because that was a very good question. Let's see here. Oh, here's another one from Crow. How many resin products have you made with your son?
Not enough, because not all of my kids enjoy epoxy projects like I do.
What? How many kids do you have, by the way, if you don't mind me asking?
I have 3. I have 2 daughters and a son.
Oh, and what are the ages?
16, 20, and almost 24.
Oh, nice.
All older, yep.
Right. Okay, here's another one. How do you suspend items in different layers in trying to create something to hang in a window that will let light shine through? Thank you.
That is such an awesome question, and I wish I had that as an example. I just did a stained glass epoxy project. It's up on my YouTube. So to suspend layers, and epoxy is such a very visual thing, so you're going to kind of have to bear with me here as I grab something to show you a little bit.
Yeah, no problem.
So, all right, I'm going to grab this big giant circle that weighs almost as much as I do. Okay, so this is epoxy here. This is a project I'm working on. So if you're going to suspend layers, as you can see, I have a base layer here, and then I'm working on building up the epoxy layers.
Yep.
So what you're going to want to do is put down a clear layer first. So you can either do this on heavy mill plastic if you want to lift it up, or you can put it on a piece of MDF, pour a base layer of epoxy, put your item in it, then pour another layer of epoxy. So you've now got it sandwiched, and then you can either plane or sand off that MDF layer, and then you can do a flood coat, which is just a clear layer of epoxy, and it'll bring that shine right back. It'll as if nothing had ever happened to it.
I love that tip, especially the flood coat is important, especially if you want to just instantly bring that shine back, because once you start sanding and abrading the surface, then it'll wreak havoc on your beautiful shine. But once you put that flood coat on, crystal clear.
Crystal clear.
Here's another good question. Can epoxy be used on cement countertops? I personally, I don't know if you have an answer for this one, but I personally do, because I have actually done this. It's on my channel. I will leave a link in the description box below at some point, so you can actually find the video easily, everyone. But there is a way to do it. However, I don't know if you will love the look, but I actually made a sink. I basically made a sink out of concrete because I wanted to make a concrete countertop, but I wanted it to be basically just waterproof. So I put epoxy over it, over the entire thing. It actually turned out really cool and unique. However, I know it's not for everyone, but in my personal opinion, yes, you can. Jess, how say you?
I say you can, but be mindful of the type of epoxy that you're using, and try to use a little bit more of a porous concrete so it can get in there and have something to adhere to.
Okay. No, that's good to know. That's a great tip. Let's see here. What was your name of your baby? I think this individual meant to say Jess. What was the name of your baby epoxy?
I didn't
quite catch it.
That was maybe another reference to the makerpoxy.
Yeah, it must be. Is this something?
I hope so.
Yeah, right. Maria says, is this something you can do small projects with, like with small wood boxes in an apartment in the city, or do I need a large studio?
No, you can do them in small spaces. I guess my biggest tips for a small space is if you can work next to a window with a screened window because you don't want bugs flying into it. If you have small kids or children, make sure absolutely it'd be imperative that you're using a low to no VOC compound, and they will say that on the back of the bottle if you're unsure. Definitely small projects. I mean, like I said, I've got this. I mean, here's my hand. This is pretty small. You can make small coasters. I've got little wine things. I mean, yeah, you can do tons and tons of small projects with it. Just try to have some airflow. Definitely, again, can't say that enough. Make sure that you're keeping it away from small pets and small children.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. You know, I've taken on some large projects, but I've also taken on some very small projects with epoxy. And that's the nice thing about it, is that's, again, so versatile, but yet you can use it in so many different realms, and it doesn't matter the space. You can literally have a 2 foot by 2 foot space, and you can still work with epoxy and make it, you know, as clean, as tidy as possible if you can.
Yeah, lay down some tarp and away you go.
Yep, exactly. Here's a good question, because this is a question I actually had on my list for you specifically, because if you've ever worked with epoxy, you know that you can get some air bubbles in your epoxy. Jess, how do you get rid of small air bubbles in epoxy?
So it starts with the mixing. I know that's probably not what you were thinking, but it starts with the mixing. Yep. So we want to make sure that we're mixing our epoxy very well for 3 to 4 minutes. If you're using a drill, like I'm pretty weak, and if I'm mixing a 5-gallon bucket of epoxy, I have my drill attached to a silicone paddle mixer, a paint mixer. Yep. And the biggest thing is that you don't want to full hammer down your drill. You want to just kind of keep it how maybe a stronger person would mix. So pretty much like this would be how you want to mix that. And you want to then transfer it to another container, give it another mix. You should have it nice and clear. Now, when you pour and you have those small bubbles, there's 2 ways. If you're using a higher viscosity epoxy, like tabletop, makerpoxy, anything that's got like a honey consistency, you first should try using a heat gun, because the heat gun disperses those bubbles a little bit better. Whereas if you're using a deep set, use a torch, because it can handle that. It's not gelling up. Thick set doesn't gel up for anywhere from 24 to 36 hours. So it can take that more precision that you're going to get from a blowtorch. Whereas the higher viscosity ones, they like to be gently moved. Again, think honey. So a heat gun works better for removing small bubbles in that situation.
Interesting. Yeah, I never thought that a heat gun would be used differently than with a actual torch. So thanks for the tip. That's actually very nice to know. And with that, also, another good question is can you mix epoxy too well? Can you mix it too much?
You can, and then you introduce so many bubbles into it that you can't get those bubbles out, and it gets very frustrating because you have this gorgeous pour and you have all of these micro bubbles in it that are really a pain in the rear to get out. So again, good recommendation and a good rule of thumb is if your epoxy says to mix it for 3 minutes, only mix it for 3 minutes and then transfer to another container. If you do have a lot of bubbles, a kind of a good way to do this, and I've done this. There's literally no question that anybody can't ask that I have not screwed up on my own, because I am all self-taught. So nobody should feel embarrassed about anything. I've almost caught epoxy on fire, so please don't hesitate to ask.
I've had my epoxy smoke. Yes, I know that feeling.
It is lame. So when I first started with epoxy, I thought the more I mix it, surely the better it's going to be, right? Because it's the way it should be. But that's actually not the case. So you're going to want to just mix it very good, 3 to 5 minutes, depending on the epoxy. If you're using your drill, keep it at half speed. So you're scraping the sides of your bucket with those paddles. is definitely the best way, because yeah, if you introduce a lot of bubbles, it won't cure properly, or it cures very cloudy.
Yep. Well, actually, with that in mind, have you ever used a pressurized tank to reduce bubbles? Because I know people have done that in the past that I've seen. I just don't know. I personally haven't done that.
I personally have not done it either, but I've been privy to people doing it. And it's only because I haven't gone and got a pressure pot yet. And I just got a lathe, which is what that is fantastic for, is to be able to turn epoxy projects on a lathe. Is a lot of common things that you'll see that. So I'm looking to get one soon, but they're right. When you introduce that pressure pot, it completely removes the bubbles and it's crystal clear.
That's so awesome. I love hearing that, and I will definitely have to use that one of these days. There are a few other questions that I would like to take. Can I? Here's another concrete question. Apparently people are interested in concrete questions. Can you mix epoxy in wet concrete, and can you inlay it in concrete?
You can inlay it.
I'll be right back.
So I'll answer while he gets back. And for people who are just joining, we were trying to get Leah on here. She's having technical difficulties. I believe there was a power outage. So every time she comes back, it's a little bit blurry and off. So unfortunately, we're trying. I was really hoping to have some time with her. But to go back to your question, you cannot blend epoxy with wet concrete. No. One of the arch nemesis of epoxy is water, period. Even a droplet of water in a 5-gallon bucket of epoxy would ruin the entire thing. So you cannot add epoxy to wet concrete. You can use epoxy as an inlay in already cured concrete, though. Absolutely.
Yes, I'm glad you said that, because that's exactly my sentiment is water and epoxy do not mix. It's one of those things that just like oil and water, it's not going to happen.
Yeah.
Okay, let's see here. I'm going to take a few more questions on epoxy if we have some. I've been really glad that we've had so much epoxy questions. That must mean that Leah, again, if you are just joining us, Leah is desperately trying to join our live stream, but she is having technical difficulties. Thank you, Comcast. But apparently, inevitably, she is truly trying to join us. If she can, she will. However, at the moment, she is not able to. So we are trying to hold down the fort without her. Again, thank you all so much. Please, again, we're going to take a few more questions, especially epoxy questions, since we have so many. And if you do have them, please leave a hashtag on the side here. Also, remember to leave a comment on the side, because if you do, you will be entered into the Total Boat giveaway today that will be featuring makerpoxy firsthand. So please leave some type of description or some type of comment on the side, and we will make sure you are entered into the giveaway that we will be doing at the very end of this live stream. So thank you all so much for joining us. Okay, I think we answered a few of these questions already. Well, actually, personally, while I'm looking at a few questions, Jess, I want to make sure we pick a few good ones out. But personally, on my end, is how long have you actually been working with epoxy?
So with epoxy, like I said, only just, I want to say coming up on 3 years. So I've always had an art background, and I've always enjoyed woodworking. I've always done DIY projects, you know, simple household, doing countertops. I did my backsplash in my very first home with broken ceramic pots. That was my first tiling project. So kind of epoxy was a natural progression with, honestly, I didn't want to do a freaking river table. To be quite frank, I didn't. I love them, and I think they are a great beginner project. But for me, that wasn't something I wanted to do. So I started making my own entire projects of epoxy and my take on a river table, which is very different than what people may when they Google river table. My version of a river table is very, very different.
Yep. No, that's great. Of course, I have a river table on my channel. but it was my first epoxy project.
Exactly.
Although it was probably too big of an epoxy project to start out with. But again, I'm also that mindset of go big or go home, and I just went for it. So there we go.
Yeah, and it's a great beginner project. It really is. It's very forgiving. You have a great sense of accomplishment, and I'm 100% for that. I am also a big giant weirdo, and I didn't want my stuff to look like everybody else's.
Right. Here is another good one, because I personally would be interested in this as well. Is there a specific epoxy you would suggest for a lot of wear and tear?
Yeah, actually, and that is a great question. So you can handle that two ways. If it's going to be outside, I would highly recommend, and I actually think it's part of the Total Boat package, coating it in the halcyon, which is an outdoor rated finish that can go over epoxy without dulling the gloss and adding a protective layer to it. If it's something, let's say a countertop inside, I would highly suggest you stick to a tabletop formulation or a bar top. Those are going to be the ones that will be able to withstand scratches and little kids and those kind of situations the best. So anything that is tabletop, bar top, mirror finish, those are the key words in the title or the name that you're going to want to look for.
No, love it. Thank you so much. That's some very helpful tips right there. Another one, good one, is that we haven't really talked about powders yet and micro powders with makerpoxy. So I'm sure you know what those powders are. What do you say?
So for anybody who doesn't know, mica powders are basically anything from fine glitter to eyeshadow, to be quite honest. Eyeshadow is a form of mica powder. And a little bit goes a very long way, and you can use any of those additives in makerpoxy. That's actually part of the glorious things with makerpoxy. It's crystal clear, so it accepts those things wonderfully. Resin pigment, mica powder, all of that can go in it.
Love it. Yeah, because there's just so much versatility, so many different combinations you can create, and that's why I just love the aspect of epoxy with those pigments, is that it's so versatile.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it definitely is. And the colors, I mean, again, going back to the river tables, they're traditionally blue. People love them, but there's so many ways that you can incorporate whatever color you want into it. I tell people when I'm teaching classes, look to your kids. If you're into race cars and motorbikes, add those colors that you love in race cars and motorbikes. Let your kids pick your colors. Let your spouse pick your colors. Let the artwork behind you dictate your colors. Don't get stuck on just oceans.
Right? There's so much versatility. Go for it.
Heck yeah.
Here is another good question that I haven't actually even thought of. Can bubbles be used in epoxy intentionally?
Oh, that's speaking to my heart. They're thinking outside the box.
Yes. There we go.
Absolutely. So you can purposefully wait until the epoxy is starting to gel up, and you can introduce bubbles into the epoxy using a syringe. And sometimes they'll collapse. It depends on how much depth you have in the epoxy. So again, this is going to be kind of a timing thing here. But yeah, you can purposefully, after you've mixed it, after you've worked out your pour and the design in your head, you're really going to want to think that one through. You can intentionally create voids in the epoxy.
I love that, because I think, it's one of those things that we're so desperately trying to get bubbles out of epoxy that it's them like, hey, why don't you think about actually incorporating them into your piece? So I love that, and I love that question to end on. And it is already, our hour is up. I cannot believe we've already surpassed it. Unfortunately, again, if you're just joining us for some odd reason, Leah tried her darndest to be here with us Unfortunately, there was some technical difficulties. Internet went out at the very last moment. And of course, she was here, but for a very short amount of time. But I think we did a pretty good job of holding down the fort, right, Jess?
Well, I don't think we sucked, but I know that we were missing our main host. So.
Yes, agreed. And we did truly miss her, but she will be back next week. Again, it is the happy hour special giveaway. So thank you all so much for your questions and your comments on the side. For today's happy hour giveaway, it is from Total Boat, and I would like to say Jess Crow, because you both created this amazing epoxy called makerpoxy, and they're going to be giving away 1 free gallon of the makerpoxy, the halcyon mixing cups, hat, so forth, and that winner is Calvin Porter. So hopefully you're still with us. Please email me directly at brent@byotools.me. That is brent@byotools.me. Please email me. If not, I will make sure to reach out to you. But you are the winner of today's happy hour special. So thank you all so much for your participation. I'm really excited and glad that we had so many epoxy questions, because sometimes we get a few on that specific topic. Apparently there's a lot of interest with epoxy, so I really appreciate all of you actually putting the time and energy to put in those helpful questions and comments. Jess, first off, where can people find you? Because I know I did leave links in the description box below on your website, your Instagram, your Facebook, but is there anything you would personally would like to shout out at this point?
No, I mean, most of the time people can find me under Jess Crow or Crow Creek Designs. I'm pretty unimaginative in the way that you can find me. So yeah, and it's been truly a pleasure, and I'm so sad that we didn't get a chance to hang out with Leah. I mean, I'm super grateful to have a chance to hang out with you, and I think somebody mentioned it in the comments that we can maybe down the road have a do-over and people have more questions as this evolves.
You know, in all honesty, I think that is going to be a must, because 1, we have to have Leah on while you're here, and 2, we have so many epoxy questions. There's still more epoxy questions that we did not get to within this hour. So yes, we for sure have to do this again. But again, thank you so much for your time and energy. Everyone out there, thank you so much for joining us. Sorry Leah's not here, but I think we held down the fort pretty well. Please let us know how we did in the description box below. We'd love to know. But in any case, thank you for your time, and hopefully we'll see you next time. And I just have to say this just because I have to. You can do this. See you next time. Sorry, I had to.